a lot of people either don't know what else is left after they modify the car the first time, or they want to do something, but they're not sure where to start. Send them a quote, and then they have something to stare at for the next couple weeks, months, years, whatever it is. And I guarantee you, they will call you. It's normal, right? We never get enough of this stuff. We're all freaks about performance. Well, your customers are different. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Battered Mechanic Podcast. I am your host, Eric Bentley. Guys, thank you so much for checking out this podcast. It's gotten rave reviews. We've had a lot of people contact us and say how much they like the content that I'm putting out in this podcast, things I'm talking about. And not only can you view it here on YouTube, but you can also find this podcast in its audio version on your preferred streaming app. So not only do you have the opportunity to see me actually talking live, but you can also listen to it maybe on a walk or when you're at the gym or driving in the car or something like that too, if you prefer the audio version. So awesome stuff. We've got 3 episodes that have been out. People love it. Be sure you're subscribing to the channel and commenting and liking. That's very, very big, very important to grow this podcast. And, we like to interact with our viewers. So if you do say something and it's something of value, I may even bring it up on a few future episodes. So that being said, before I get into it, before I get into episode 4, I would like to give a shout out to Pompano Beach Fire Rescue. I am wearing the hat today. I do work for Pompano Beach Fire Rescue, local 1549. So I thought I'd wear their hat today. I thought it was pretty cool. So every third day I am a fireman, but today I happen to be a podcast host. So a big shout out to my brothers and sisters there at Pompano Beach Fire Rescue. Without further ado, I'd like to dive right into episode 4. The content that I'm putting out up to this point, tips and tricks of how to run a business, how to run a performance shop, and pitfalls to avoid. Today is no exception to that. Episode 4, we're going to focus on things like covering your ass and setting customer expectations. Very, very big topics in the automotive performance business I think some guys miss. And if you look at automotive shops and the problems that they have, a lot of those problems stem from not setting clear customer expectations from the get-go. And then on top of that, not only not setting clear expectations, but not putting things in place to protect your business, protect yourself, and even protect your customers. So I've broken this theme down into 6 phases. So I'm going to go over the 6 phases of covering your ass and setting expectations. And I hope by the end of this podcast, it helps to shed some light on some things that you may be able to integrate into your own shop, and or maybe things you're already doing, and maybe just tweak, and hoping that this eliminates some issues and problems that potentially could occur after the customer's picked up the vehicle and taken it home. All right, so let's get into this. Episode 4, the 6 phases of covering your ass and setting customer expectations. Phase 1, image creation. So when does the actual image and expectation begin of your brand, of your shop? Well, it's long before the customer ever calls you, right? They're going to go online. They're going to look at your website. They're going to look at your social media. They're going to look at your reviews. They're going to look at your results. They're going to talk to other people who maybe have done business with you. And what the customer is going to do, the potential customer is going to do, is they're going to start to develop an image in their head of, or an idea of what the experience is going to be like dealing with your business. And that's all based off of what you have created long before they ever actually call you on the phone. So the reason this is phase 1 in this process is because it actually is sort of the most important as far as getting off on the right foot, right? And it's completely within your control. So you want to make sure the things you're posting online are congruent with the actual operation that you have, that the actual results that you're providing and the systems and everything that you have, and that just the whole operation itself is sort of in line with what you're putting out there. In other words, if you're putting out really, really high-end content, but the work coming out of the shop is dog shit, then that's going to be a problem, right? That's not on the same level. So you guys want to make sure that the customer is seeing the right stuff out there, that the content they're getting is representative of your operation accurately, because that's ultimately how their experience and their expectations are going to start to form long before they ever talk to you, right? So phase 1, very, very important. Make sure that when they're doing the research on your company, that whatever it is that you've put out there is going to accurately depict what it is that they're going to experience when they actually call you. All right, so phase one. Phase two, setting the tone. So the customers looked you up online, they've read your reviews, they're compelled to call you at this point or email you or message you or whatever the case is. This is a very, very important part of the process where setting the tone and making sure that you're keeping that momentum, so to speak, going occurs when this occurs. You only have one chance for a first impression, right? So again, they've done their research, they've gone through step one or phase one, they've called you, they've contacted you. You want to make sure that you sort of keep that going. So first things first, have a timely response, right? And we've talked about this in earlier episodes. Don't go too long without responding to the customer, all right? They're excited to call you. They want to get the work done, kind of keep that momentum going with the customer. Don't let them lose that excitement, all right? Set the tone. If you take 3 days to answer their email, they're automatically going to assume that either you're not interested or that you're not what you say you are online, and that momentum you have is going to dwindle. So we don't want to do that. So prompt responses, and then moving on from the response, once you've spoken to the customer and you've kept that excitement up, most likely what's going to happen after that is a quote, right? You're going to give them some sort of an estimate based off what they want to do. So it sort of goes along with, responding to them, be timely on your quotes. And we've talked about that in earlier episodes. Once you send the quote, follow up. That's a very important one too. Again, we're trying to keep that momentum up, right? That you've already established with this person. Don't be great in the beginning when they contact you and then suck at the end of that process, right? So phase two is all about keeping that momentum up, prompt replies, timely quotes and accurate quotes, and then follow up. So you may not hear from the customer for a day or two. That's okay. They're digesting the quote, they're digesting what it is that you've sent them, but it's always good to follow up. Say, hey, Mr. Jones, I sent you a quote. I appreciate your time. I'm here. This is how you can contact me. If you have any questions at all, let me know. Give it maybe 24 hours and then follow up with them again. If you haven't heard from them, call them. Hey, just making sure you receive the estimate. Any questions for me? Oh, and 9 out of 10 times they're going to have a question. Oh, yeah, what's this? What's that? You answer those questions, keep that momentum up. Okay, so phase two essentially is sort of playing off phase one and keeping that energy up. All right, we don't want that energy to fall. The energy falls, you're going to lose a customer, or at least potentially cut your chances of landing that job in half. Phase three, talked a little bit more about quotes, right? So we've talked about phase two, which is providing a timely quote. All right, but let's actually talk about the quote. Let's talk about the estimate. Make sure they're clear and concise. Nothing worse than customer contacts you. You've done a great job keeping them on the hook, keeping that momentum up, and then you send them a quote, and the quote looks like a third grader put it together, right? It's all over the place. It's hard to understand. It's gibberish. It's maybe it's written by you for a person who understands what it is you're talking about, but it's not actually written for somebody who's maybe not as involved or not as knowledgeable in the subject, and you give them this quote that just completely confuses them. That's going to be a major turnoff right away. So avoid that. Make sure your quotes are clear, concise. Make sure that you have addressed what it is that the customer's trying to do. You've provided that solution in that quotation. Don't confuse them. That's a very, very big step in the process, right? So phase three, when you're putting the quotation together, make sure it's actually what they're looking for. Give them some options. That's a big one. Pricing and fees. Be upfront about your prices. Be upfront about your hourly rate or whatever flat rate, whatever it's going to be. Be upfront about your processing fees, the taxes, the fees that are involved in building this person's car. Make sure that those don't come up later. That's a major turnoff. We've all been there, right? We've got an estimate for something, and then you get the work done, and then you get the bill, and there's all kind of shit hidden in there. Don't do that. Be very upfront. Being upfront about your fees and your cost structure and what it's going to cost for this person to build their car, whether they do the job or not, they'll gain your trust. And that in itself, gaining your trust is a huge win. Again, whether or not they do the job, you might do everything right and they just can't afford it or they don't want to do it right now. But at least they've gained your trust at that point because you've been so upfront about everything. It also helps them budget, right? Or they may not realize that it costs as much as it does to build the car, and at least they know. They're going to respect you for that. And when the time does come, if it comes for them to build the car, they're going to call you back. Provide good, bad, and ugly. This is a big one, right? So it's so easy for us to talk about the positives, the good, how everything is going to be so great. right? Let's say a customer comes in with a Corvette, right, to Florida High Performance, and he wants to put a big ass camshaft in the car. Yeah, it's going to make great horsepower and torque. It's going to sound choppy. It's going to be awesome. Right? All those things we look for when we put a big cam in these LS and LT engines. Well, what about some of the drawbacks? All right, well, I'm very upfront about those with my clients. Mr. Jones, it's low end RPM, low speed drivability is going to maybe go down a little bit, and explain that and go into detail. If you have an automatic car with a stock torque converter, it may not drive very well. You may not want to go with such a big camshaft. Your mileage is going to suffer. So again, go back to, and again, this is all setting expectations. Give them everything out. Put everything out there. And when you do that, you've sort of taken the burden off of them, and all the things they're thinking about, and you've sort of covered your ass. And that way, if Mr. Jones does a job and he comes back and says this thing drives like ass, he can be like, hey man, I told you, big camshaft in this car is going to drive like that. And he's going to be like, yeah, you did. All right. So phase 3, when it comes to the quotes, not only do you want a clear and concise quote, but you also want to set those expectations of the good, the bad, the ugly of what it is that they're looking to do with their car. Very, very important. Phase 4, I put here in my notes, this is the most crucial phase in the overall process. And this pertains to the covering your ass portion of this podcast. Phase 4, paperwork. Long time ago when I started in this business, I didn't have any paperwork, right? Well, what do I mean by paperwork? We've all been to a shop. We've all been to, auto repair shop, whatever it is, and they typically have some sort of a service agreement, or on the estimate itself, it'll have maybe their warranty or their service, guarantee or their policies or whatever that is, right? So that page is good, but it doesn't always cover everything. So when I started early on, I started with a basic sheet that had the customer information, the build, the estimate, the price, things like that. And then very, very little about what if something goes wrong, what sort of warranty we offer, is the car going to be stored inside or outside, do the customer want their stock parts. There's so many aspects to building somebody's car, right, or modifying somebody's car that you may not have covered in that paperwork. And inevitably, something goes wrong and it bites you in the butt because you didn't do your diligence up front. Okay, so phase 4 is the most crucial because it's protecting not only yourself but the customer, and it's outlining everything in writing from a legal standpoint. So if something does go wrong, which it can, no matter how good we do, no matter how good of a job we do, shit happens, right? It's right there in writing. It's very easy for you to go back and say, look, this was very clear. This is our policy. This is how we do things. You signed it, you read it, right? So it really doesn't necessarily get you completely off the hook. I mean, at the end of the day, if you screw something up, you might have to fix it, but at least the customer knows long before they ever drop the car off that, okay, this is what I can expect. If something goes wrong, this is the kind of coverage that I'm getting by going with this shop. If something does go wrong, what kind of recourse do I have? Things like that. So again, going back to setting expectations, there's no surprises. And, that's a big one. So paperwork. Before money is exchanged, make sure that you supply this paperwork to them. So the way we do it at Florida High Performance is once we've sent the quote and the customer agrees with the price and agrees with the job, then I send them the paperwork. We actually have about 4 or 5 pages in a DocuSign form. So it's actually all digital. It's not actually paper anymore. So we've gotten to the 21st century. I used to have piles of paper on my desk in people's folders. It was like 1990. Stupid. We actually integrated everything into an online document, like a DocuSign, where I'll email it to the customer. It'll have the breakdown of the job, the estimate number, the required deposit, all of our terms, all of our policies and procedures and warranty and all that kind of stuff. It's right there in front of them. It actually asks them at the end whether or not we're going to keep their parts or they want their stock parts back, because that's a big one, right? You finish a job, you have a big pile of stuff left over. Do they want the stuff? Do they not want the stuff? It keeps people from leaving their shit at your shop for weeks upon weeks. So all these things are clearly defined in the beginning, long before any money is exchanged. I've had customers call me that reviewed our service agreement and they're like, look, I don't feel comfortable at XYZ. Fine. You have 2 choices at that point. You can not do the job, which is absolutely fine, right? If they don't agree with whatever it is that you do in your business and how you need to run your business, walk away. Or depending on the client and the job and their concern, you can always modify the agreement, right? If somebody says, listen, I know my car might be outside, but I'd really like it to be inside at all times, and you're sort of against that, maybe this particular guy's job is quick and you can make an exception, right? And pencil it in. So, but you do all this ahead of time, way before you exchange any money. If you do this after they give you money, then it becomes a problem because they've already given you deposit based off what they had in their mind of how things are going to go. And then you send them this 5-6 page document that maybe they're not comfortable with. So it's sort of out of order. All right. So we want to avoid that. That also leaves a very bad taste in people's mouths. I actually did that once or twice inadvertently when we went from paper service agreements to the online version. I realized that I had taken people's deposits and not had this paperwork sent to them. So I had to call them and explain to them that things had changed, and it worked out fine. But, now everything is done ahead of time. But yeah, phase 4 is just covering your ass, period. If you're not doing that, if you're not implementing the paperwork at a time, then you're asking for disaster. The customer's got all the leverage at that point. And it's going to be a problem. And also get an attorney involved if you need to, right? Pay an attorney, have them put together something that's professional. Nothing worse than you write your own little agreement and then you left a bunch of holes in it, like Swiss cheese that another attorney could always see through if it gets to that, right? So get an attorney involved for sure. Phase 5, moving right along here. Doing the work. So they found you online. They were compelled to call you. You've kept the momentum up. You're killing it. They're super happy. You've done everything you said you were going to do. Right now, the customers is just cloud 9. They signed the paperwork. They've given you the deposit. You've ordered the parts. I mean, things are going great. All right. Now we got to actually do the work. All right. So this is really where the meat and potatoes hit my plate, so to speak. I don't know. I just made that up. Doing the work. So again, they have this expectation in their mind based off everything they've done up to this point, and then you do a shitty job, and then they realize, wow, this is not at all what this guy said he does, or this is not at all what I thought these guys do. So again, doing the work. I always say under promise, over deliver. That's a good one. Don't boast about how great everything's going to be. Just be humble. Say, listen, we're going to do a great job. This is what we've done. We're experts at this. Sort of undersell yourself a little bit. That way, when you do a really bang up job, they're just even that much happier. They want to leave you a review, maybe give you a tip, whatever the case is, tell all their friends how great it was. So sort of under promise a little bit. Don't over promise people things that you can't do. All right. But again, when you do the job, stay in touch with the customer, keep them up to date, send pictures, keep that momentum going. This is all about that momentum through the entire job. And it's not easy to do. A lot of shop owners get burned out. They got bills to pay. They got problems outside of the shop, and ultimately what happens is they forget the customer service side of things, right? So you've worked so hard to get the job in the door, and then it all goes down the shitter because, you're essentially neglecting the customer while the car's in the shop. That's the worst thing to do. The car's here, all right? Keep them involved in the process. We have a little bit of a program that we do sometimes. People have a head cam swap at our shop. I'll actually have the customer come in, let them install their own camshaft with our assistance. I mean, that is for a guy that loves cars but doesn't know anything really about the mechanics or has never really worked on his own car, for him to be able to come into the shop and work with myself and our technicians and actually work on his engine. I mean, that's it. I don't know of anybody that's really doing that. I know it's like putting your engine together when you order a Corvette through GM. I know there's a program where you can actually go to Kentucky to the plant and help put your engine together for certain vehicles. So it's sort of along those lines, but that's all part of that customer experience and keeping that momentum going. Keeping customers updated, as I said, very important. Bad news. Let's talk about bad news. Bad news sometimes happens. Sometimes things break. Sometimes there's unforeseen expenses that are popping up along the way. Break it to the customer right away. Don't have something bad happen, whatever that is, at whatever level, and sort of sit on it. All that's going to do is cause you undue stress, and ultimately you have to face it. And it's by sitting on it and not just attacking it and getting to the point with the client, it's not doing anybody any good. So let's say you're working on a car and a part doesn't fit or a part breaks, or the customer has another part that is broken that needs to be replaced, or you put a ding in their fender, or whatever it is. Call them, let them know. Mr. Jones, everything's going really well. unfortunately, we had this happen, or this is the case, or this is what it is. We're letting you know right away. We're letting you know that we're going to continue to progress. We're going to do the best job we can. And then when you do that, when you let them down, pick them right back up with a solution. I've talked about solutions before in previous episodes in this podcast. Provide solutions. That's really all they're looking for at the end of the day. So if you give them some bad news, provide a solution right afterwards. So it's sort of like knocking them down, picking them back up, dusting them off, and then you keep moving. Nobody wants to hear bad news and then you shrug your shoulders and say, sorry, there's really nothing I can do for you at this point. This is what it is. Nonsense. This is what happened. This is how we're going to fix it. Don't worry, we got it. And, we'll see you on the other side of this. And at that point, usually the customer's pretty understanding once they get over the initial news. And again, all part of keeping that momentum going and setting expectations and following up on those expectations. Part of that sometimes is breaking bad news, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it. So that's an important one. Last but not least, phase 6. Phase 6, completion, delivery, and follow-up. You've done the job. You knocked it out of the park. You've done everything that you said you would. The process has been exactly what the customer expected based off of, your reviews, based off of what they've seen online, based off of the conversations you've had with this person, right? The very last portion of this process, all right, is the delivery, but it is just as important as any of the other 5 phases. This is often overlooked as well. You're done with the job. Sometimes the job wears you out. Sometimes you've lost enthusiasm for it for whatever reason. Maybe the guy's a little bit hard to deal with. Whatever the case. Maybe you're having something going on outside of the shop that's bothering you. Remember, this person that is paying you to work on their car, they've been waiting for this day for X weeks, months, whatever. They've been waiting for this day. It's like the day. This is the debut. This is what it all has come together. This is where it all culminates. Don't drop the ball. This is the most important part. Car is done. You've done your QC. You've called the customer. They're coming to pick up the car. Make sure the car is clean. Don't give them back a dirty car. We wash every car before it's delivered at Florida High Performance. Sometimes it's a pain in the ass to do that. Sometimes I'm doing it at, midnight, the night before we deliver the car. But, make sure that it's just as exciting for them to pick up the car as it was to drop off the car. When you get paid and you've gone over the car with the customer and you've driven it with them and they're super happy, the process doesn't end there. We've gotten paid. That's ultimately the prize, right, for doing a good job and being badass. But even after they leave, the job is not done, right? Again, expectations. I think a customer, they go to a high-end shop, they're expecting to be treated well even after the fact. Keep them in the loop if you have events. Call them, the day after and ask them how the car is. Is there anything we can do for you? Is there anything we could do better? How was your experience? Would you mind leaving a review? Nobody does this stuff. This right here is the difference between you growing your business long term and you just being another guy that works on cars, right? Mr. Jones, it's been 2 days. I haven't heard from you. I hope that's good news. I hope you're enjoying the car. I hope it's everything you expected. Let me ask you, is there anything that we could do for you? Is there anything we could do better? No, man, I love it. It's badass. My wife loves it. My friends love it. I took it to the track. It's running great. Everything's wonderful. Great. If you wouldn't mind, it would really help if you would leave us a Google review, a 5-star Google review. Leave us a review on a forum. As weird as it may feel to ask a customer to do that, you have to do that, right? I have a 5-star rating on Google as of today, almost 80 reviews. A lot of those people have left on their own, but it's okay to ask. It may not feel, right to ask, but you should, because people sometimes forget or they don't know that they can do that. You have these older guys maybe that aren't as savvy on the internet. Send them the link. If you actually go on your Google profile, which you should have, by the way, and that's another episode. When you go on your Google profile and you go to reviews, there's an actual hyperlink that you can copy and paste into an email. Mr. Jones, thank you for your business. I'm glad you're happy with the car. If you need anything, I'm here for you. You can call me 24/7. Oh, and by the way, would you mind clicking this link and leaving us a 5-star review? I'm telling you, I have 99% success rate with doing that. And nobody ever emails me back and says, hell no, I won't do. Most people are going to be like, sure, sounds good. So phase 6, it's just as important as phase 1. You're sealing the deal, you're closing the chapter, right? You're closing the book, and you're leaving them with such a good taste in their mouth that they can't do anything but say good things about it, right? And that all goes back to setting customer expectations, covering your ass, and seeing it through the whole way. and not, leaving anything on the table. Last but not least, and just as just a little tidbit for you shop owners out there looking to make a little bit more money, maybe pad the bottom line a little more. This is what I do. So Mr. Jones just got, say, a stage 1 package on a ZL1, right? He's driving around. I send him a quote for stage 2. Hey, Mr. Jones, by the way, I'm going to send you the quote if you're interested in the next stage and next things you can do in that car. I'm going to send it to you. A lot of people either A, don't know what else is left after they modify the car the first time, or they want to do something, but they're not sure where to start. Send them a quote. And then they have something to stare at for the next couple weeks, months, years, whatever it is. And I guarantee you, they will call you. It's normal, right? We never get enough of this stuff. We're all freaks about performance. Well, your customer's no different, right? It takes 2 seconds. Just put together a little wish list, a little quote, whatever it is, send it to the guy, talk to him about it, say, listen, this is going to be the next step if you want to proceed. This is what it's going to be. And let me know when you're ready. And I'm telling you, I would say 50% of the time I get a response on those leads from the same guy soon. And we do it. So it's an easy way to get more business and repeat business coming through the door. So guys, 6 phases. All right. If you want to have a better shop, if you want to avoid a lot of potential issues and catastrophes and things that can go wrong, it's very basic stuff, but again, basic things nobody's doing. Follow these 6 steps, these 6 phases. Implement them now. All right. And I assure you that your experience as an owner or a manager of a shop is going to improve. Your customer's experience is going to improve exponentially. There's going to be a lot less stress that you need to deal with throughout the process. If there is an issue, we all know how to take care of it because we've clearly defined what we do when there's a problem. The customer understands that if there's a problem, that they have some recourse, right? And if you follow these phases, I can assure you that your life is going to be a lot easier for sure. I hope you found value in these 6 phases. Some of them you may have already known or you're already implementing in your day-to-day business. That's great. If not, I would take the advice and start doing those things. If you have ideas that you could share with us, I'd love to see your comments and things that you're doing to set expectations and cover your ass. Again, guys, if you found value in this, make sure you like, subscribe. And as always, as I always say at the end of my podcast, remember, it's never easy. It's always hard. Guys, I appreciate it. I'll see you next time on the Battered Mechanic. I'm out.